Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the weekly Wringer series here on clanofthegreywolf.com. Now, we've got one of our second most popular ringers to come up and talk about today. Really, we had some really great responses for the weekly Wringer in the last couple weeks, folks. I am loving the response to this. It really just warms my heart. Really, we've come a long way. And I love seeing all of the outpouring from the community each and every week, and I sincerely thank you for that. That being said, I am filming this video a little later than I normally do. Part of that is because we had such a great response. I just kept seeing a lot of great responses come in, and I always felt a little strange about recording the video if I didn't get all the responses that I wanted to get. So as a result, you're going to see a lot of feedback today. You're going to see a lot of folks that commented on last week's Wringer. We've got plenty of new folks to go around. And we've got a topic for next week, I think, that will really, I think, having, maybe causing us to have a little bit of a different mindset about video gaming hardware as we go into the gaming con season that is upon us. So, before we get into all of that stuff, as I said, we had some very popular weekly Wringers, which has been fantastic. The responses have been just awesome, and I thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for that. You guys have done a tremendous job in stepping up to the plate to talk about all the topics that have come up. And as many of you have posed questions that I've used, which have really caused a great stir in the community. You guys have done some tremendous things and suggested some great topics. So, first thing I want to say is, let's keep it going. Love to see the responses. Love to see you guys giving me feedback about things that you'd like to talk about here on the Weekly Wringer. That is part and parcel of the entirety of the Weekly Wringer package. Now, let's get on to our new folks. And I'm going to do this now, and I'm going to try to charge through it because we have a lot of new folks. I didn't even count how many, but there are plenty of you guys this week, and that is fantastic. Let's jump right in, shall we? First of all, I should say, LED or LED, I can't really decide which, LED Naruto. I'm going to go with LED because I think that's a cooler name. LED Naruto, welcome to you. Welcome Bandit Crow. I think that's a pretty cool name too. I like that one. Serujitsu. Serujitsu, that's cool. I like that name. That's a neat one. Welcome to both of you as well. Let's see. Let's see here. We've got Sand Coffin 69. Welcome to you. Phantom Hive. Welcome to you. It just keeps going, guys. It just keeps on going. Let's see. We've got Wolfie 13. We have John C 911. Welcome to you both. Necrom 23. Welcome to you. Garmin Bonia, interesting name, welcome to you. And Amadus, I guess longtime person that was a part of our community, but now has joined the Weekly Wringer as a first-time commenter. Love to see that. J Deviant, that's at least how I'm going to say it. Welcome to J Deviant. That's a pretty neat name too, I like that. And what is undoubtedly an attempt just to see if I will fumble through the names, DJTJJ. I won't try to actually say that in any kind of phonetic way. Instead, I will just spell it out. There it is. So, plenty of new people this week. That's something to celebrate. I think that's a fantastic thing. As you might imagine, since there were so many new people, there's a lot of feedback and answers to the question for last week, which was about the greatest animated show of all time. A question worthy of a week and a half worth of Weekly Wringer comments and responses. So, with that being said, what did you guys come up with? Now, it's very important I mention this. I did read every single one of your posts, at least up to a certain point, and if you're posting this after I filmed the video, in which case I'm sorry. But I read every single post, and I read every single word of every single post until I filmed the video. I want to make it clear. What I went with was your top response. The response that you guys said was the best. I've done this many times in the Weekly Wringer where you guys put something out there of what you think is the best, and some you might talk about three, but then you pick one. I went with the one, and I might have kept a few for an honorable mention for my own mind to talk about what my favorite animated show of all time is and what I think the best is. And but I didn't include that as part of your response. So don't think I'm cheapening you out if I didn't mention one of the shows that you put in your response. I did read it. I just went with your top response because that's, after all, what the question is all about and what it's really asking for. I'm going to go number one with LED Naruto, who came up with the first response, which was that there really is no best show. That every, or best animated series, I should say, because every series has its flaws, it has its virtues. And I think this is a really interesting way to look at things. To talk about a best animated series, you're probably going to talk about a lot of nuances that are very culturally specific. I'm going to warn you guys, this particular episode of the Weekly Ringer, and probably most all of them, is very Western-centric. It just is. I don't try to hide my bias. It's absolutely a bias, right? It's there. I don't watch a tremendous amount of anime, whatever. I don't do a lot of that, right? And while I certainly appreciate to a certain extent why people do like it, I am not one of those people. So, when I ask about the best animated show of all time, it's obviously going to be culturally affected. So, in other words, and I'm not sure that's even what LED Naruto was actually pointing to. I think maybe that's more of a reference to the fact that, really it's difficult to say what is the best because there are so many great ones that, it's really difficult to choose a best one. It'd be like saying what's the best film of all time. There's a lot of great films, and you might be, if you're feeling down or whatever, you might have a movie that you go back to every single time. And again, it's the best movie to have in that kind of a circumstance or situation. And I think there are plenty of those. So why not animated shows? Makes sense to me. Anyway, thought I'd lead off with that. Thought that was a really good point. And rather than kind of just punching off with a nomination, why not talk about the fact that maybe there shouldn't be any nomination because at the end of the day, there might not be a best animated show. That being said, that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about things to their extremes, and the extreme would be to mention the best animated show of all time. Shirao Wolf talked about The Simpsons. And this is just indisputable. And I think one that is a show that is beyond almost every other animated series that you could probably post against it. There are few contenders in the annals of animated comedy that would rival The Simpsons. It's actually really tough to think about. And arguably, there's no show in the threshold of The Simpsons, and there are fantastic reasons why. Obviously, the cultural relevance as the show has gone on has changed a little bit, but it has adapted with all of the many, nuances of culture. I think that's great. So, The Simpsons has great writing. It's launched some of the best writers that you can think of out there. I know Conan O'Brien, for example, wrote for The Simpsons. There are just so many tremendous stories, writers, comedies. Just all the jokes that have come out of The Simpsons are just awesome. So, I think The Simpsons, even though I know that they've had a few years of some pretty bad seasons, or even pretty bad for them, is still probably pretty good. So I'm going to say The Simpsons deserves to be up there. DTX 180 wins the award for picking the same exact choice that Rue had made when I asked him this question, even though he didn't comment on this week's Ringer, and that is Batman the Animated Series. Wow, where to start with Batman the Animated Series? First of all, I think it absolutely is in the conversation. It was so diverse and so different stylistically from all the other shows of its time that I think it warrants mention specifically for that. When you take Batman the Animated Series, it is something that really results from the success of Batman that was born from the kind of Tim Burton, Danny Elfman epic of, I believe it was 1990, might have been 1989. Anyway, but that was a tremendous show or movie that gave birth to the concept of this show. The show takes the extremes of the movie and turns it into something, I think, even bigger and more epic than the film. And that is the kind of 20s deco, the technology, the kind of sternness and I guess quiet, almost unspoken nature of Batman is something many iterations of Batman have sought to replicate in the years following. Batman the Animated Series is musically one of the best shows to watch. The animation style is fantastic. I watched an episode very recently. I believe it was on the Hub. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, I watched an episode recently, and it really does hold up. The only thing that you will do as an adult watching the show versus when you were a kid is that you don't give it the same, I guess, weight in terms of what it skips over and what it, in terms of action. It doesn't look as cool as some of the things that people do today. And I think it does look a little bit dated in that regard because, to my knowledge, it was a completely hand-animated series. And to think about the hand animation of, some of these really impressive shows like Batman the Animated Series, and that it was entirely done by hand, is just unbelievable. Those are some of the greatest accomplishments in my mind to television animation. And Batman the Animated Series absolutely belongs really close, if not the top, right there up at the top. So I could not agree more. Unseasonably mentioned My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Now, I have not been swept up by this phenomenon. I'm not dissing any of you that have. I have seen parts, kind of pieces of the show that I think were very prevalent in the show that was its spiritual predecessor, which was the Powerpuff Girls. And I thought the Powerpuff Girls was a fantastic cartoon. I really enjoyed that. One of those shows that helped to build the Cartoon Network into what it is today. And I think My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic really carries that torch very well. I agree. It has two levels. You will find this for almost every single one of the cartoons that animated series I'm going to talk about today. There are two levels. The kids enjoy it because it's silly and it's something they can laugh at because it's goofy, right? Adults enjoy it because of the humor, the comedy. It's very much like the Muppets, where really the two levels interact and work with each other at all times, really flawlessly and seamlessly, where you just see how everything bleeds together and it just works really well. So I think it's worthy of mention. It's not my favorite. I don't know if it's the best all time. I happen to be partial to the Powerpuff Girls from what I've seen from My Little Pony. So I don't know. I think I probably have to say that probably isn't in my top 10. Ferrier mentioned SpongeBob SquarePants. And I have to say, first of all, I think it's brave to name that as the best of all time. Second of all, I have to say that I agree 100%. I have been a SpongeBob SquarePants fan since it debuted, I think, in 1999. And SpongeBob was really operated on those levels to a degree that most people were not really looking for the nuance. They couldn't get past the goofiness and silliness of it to see the kinds of things they were doing with that show. And I think that's terrible because SpongeBob really did some awesome work in terms of teaching kids lessons, things like that I thought was really great. But had some really funny topics that were very prevalent and very, like I say, topical and culturally relevant to this day. And I think it works really well. SpongeBob is well over 10 years old, going strong. The one thing I have to say about SpongeBob is that less than halfway through the current run, they switched Tom Kenny's voice from being kind of at what I feel to be a tolerable level of speaking and listening to being something that is completely intolerable. It is just a night. They pitched